for God, for country, for truth, for justice, for the Republic. NeoCrusader.com.
People stop now, listen. You don't know what you're missing. The man will take you higher and be your one desire.
Episode 17. The title of this episode is Mr. AJ. And I'd like to thank you for joining in on this episode. The person that I'll be interviewing tonight goes by the pseudonym Aaron Jones. I know him only as that. He and I are both members of an online chat group, a Patriot group, and he had a very intriguing story to tell. He's looking for an outlet to tell his story. And so, after hearing a little bit about it, I said, hey, I'd like to know a little more about it. He sent me a few documents, and from there, we set up a time to come on and, do an interview via phone. And I want to say up front, the organizations, the political offices, the politicians that he mentions in this, the police officers, I have not spoken with any of them. I have not verified this information. I am simply giving the man an outlet to come online and or to come on the show and get his voice out online to the rest of the world. And so he is going to tell a nightmare scenario of everything that could go wrong in a sanctuary city. Well, I don't want to say that because the things can always be worse, but he has a very, very frustrating story to tell, and it comes out in the interview. I do want to warn the listeners, this interview is very explicit. So, if you're sensitive to that, this episode may not be for you. But for those who want to carry on with it, I will go ahead and let Mr. Jones tell the story.
Well, what would you like to know?
Well, I mean, really, I probably would honestly just want you to get into it. I mean, you know what you want to say, probably better than I know what to ask. So I'll probably let you tell the story. Maybe start with a little bit of your background. It just all sounds. Now, I guess it's one thing I wanted to ask you before we went into it is, as far as you talked about being prosecuted and things like that. Did you have an attorney, a public defender, anybody that that was in your?
Well, yeah, I did. And when I talk about a prosecution, it's not really. I mean, it's a traffic infraction. It's not even a misdemeanor.
Sure.
Right.
And
you still use the word.
Yeah.
Well, it's still criminal because it's a ticket and it's still covered by the rules of criminal procedure, because even if it's an infraction, it's like when the traffic, or what do they call that? We call it justice court here. Other places call it traffic court.
Traffic courts, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, but nobody considers traffic court criminal, but it's under the criminal rules of procedure instead of the civil rules of procedure on how you proceed to defend yourself.
Sure.
Right. So that's when I say prosecuted, that's what I'm referencing. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not, So when I went, I just, back all the way up to how it occurred.
Okay.
Just, I'm hit by somebody who is driving without insurance. There's a mandate under the law to drive with insurance. It's a public safety mandate in most states. Here it is too.
Sure.
And instead of going into the whole history of the accident and, you know, how long this was and, you know, all that stuff, it's just basically, this is a person who then told the police that he was insured. And then the point of it is, in this particular case, because it's talking about the U.S. and, you know, the directions that President Trump is moving and the things that Attorney General Sessions are excited about and the sanctuary policies that we've seen erode the system of laws that we have here and create what are factually a two-tier system of accountability in public safety just with respect to driving. Mm-hmm. You know, if the law states that you're required to be insured and we're both pulled over and one of us is illegal and one of us is not, and the person who is not illegal is required to produce physical insurance under the law, and the person who is illegal is not required to produce physical insurance and is allowed just to vouch for himself or call somebody who vouches for him, of course, then right there it jeopardizes an ability for you to, you know, receive equal treatment under the law. Mm-hmm. That's the federal provision, the federal provision of the 14th Amendment. I think it's I'm not an attorney, but I read a little bit. The 14th Amendment really was a federal provision about, you know, guidance to the states that was everybody in every territory of the United States is owed the same protection of law, no matter what territory they're in, and also due process. You know, the states are also required to provide, you know, the procedurally the things that help people obtain a remedy under the law to seek justice using due process and equal treatment. So that's how the case begins, okay?
Right.
And it's important, and I'll get to that later. But, so he's not required to. And there's another individual at the accident scene who created his own accident. It turns out that he's also here illegally. And legal or not, I'm not making a castigation about their character. I can certainly understand people, you know, coming to the United States and want a better life. But I've also traveled quite extensively, you know, probably not quite 250,000 miles. That's small for some, but, you know, in a lot of other countries. And anywhere I've ever gone, I've always been required to obey the laws in those countries. And I've always been required at all times to carry identification or face arrest, incarceration, or worse, you know. And this other individual, so I'll call him driver one and driver two. Driver one hits me. He's not insured. He tells the police he's insured. They don't make him produce any insurance, and they say they're insured. Driver two gets a ticket because he doesn't have any ID. And he gets a ticket for driving without ever obtaining a license in the state of Utah. And it turns out that he had been driving without ever obtaining a license in Utah, dating to 2009. So that would mean 7 years.
Wow.
Now, if you or I'll make it even simpler. If the governor of my state was caught driving without a license since 2009, he would have he'd be incarcerated, number one. He'd be arrested, put in jail. His car would be impounded. And he'd have a chance to get his car out when he got out of jail. That's the way it would work. That's the way it works for citizens. That's what I'm talking about, is this two-tier system of accountability. You know, and I'll get to the equal protection part later. So that's how it begins. And then these two people who make a claim that they don't know each other. This happened in Salt Lake. And then the individual who ran into me, his radiator fluid leaked out after he hit me. And so he left his vehicle near the scene. And he drives home with the other person in front of the police who just cited him for his fifth citation for driving without ever obtaining a license since 2009 and not having any ID. Okay? Watch as these two smile and drive away into the sunset together. Where they drive 60 miles to another county where they live in the same city, a mile apart from each other at the time of the accident, and continue to maintain a claim that they did not know one another.
Wow.
I thought that was odd. You know, in fact, the guy who hit me immediately after the accident, I called him up and asked him what happened. You know, or not immediately, it was soon thereafter. After I kind of figured out some things here. And he's all recorded statements that I did my own investigation work until I hired an investigator. Stated that, oh, no, the guy that I rode home with, he said that he lived in Layton. Well, Layton is 60 miles in the opposite direction. So, you know, clearly that's not being untruthful, you know, and I tried to share the information with the prosecutor. And in my case, it's just every single instance opened up another chapter of disbelief. So that occurs. You know, I go to traffic court. I meet with the prosecutor. He's a nice guy in this particular case. The other guy who ends up going through with the case. And I had, at that particular time, proof that what the officer had written down and stated was different than what this guy had stated to me. He had a recording of it. I played it for him. After he listened to it, he confided to me that, okay, well, I was also in an auto accident kind of like this many years ago, and I remember how crappy I felt about it. So we went in front of the judge and set a date to just, you know, come take the trial, and he really wasn't going to push it forward. You know, it's kind of obvious that the guy, you know, everyone knew he was driving illegally, and so we were just going to forget about it. Well, they gave me a notice to appear on a certain day, and then they gave me another notice to appear on another day.
Uh-huh.
So when I showed up on the notice to appear, they had already held it on a different day. And so they decided, well, we're going to have these two people show up to be witnesses against you in the case in front of traffic court judge. And I mean, usually a witness in a case is someone who is like who would be an eyewitness, who observed, not someone who actually participated in it, who had motive or intent or bias to lie. In this particular case, both these guys obviously had a motive to not tell the truth, because as it turns out, they also had both lied at the scene of the accident.
Right.
The one individual who lied about having insurance, turns out that I wouldn't find out until after I lost the case and appealed it, that he had a record of convictions for lying to the police on the matter of insurance. He had 3 convictions in another county where he lived for lying to the police, or they call it falsification of personal information. Mm-hmm. And that was his insurance status, license status, registration status, those things. But 3 convictions. So wouldn't this be a pattern? And the pattern went back 10 years, too. It was like, hey, a 10-year history of this.
A leopard,
and,
yeah, doesn't change its spots.
Yeah. Right. Well, I didn't know this at the first hearing that I went to. I mean, the first trial. You know, and I didn't even cover the trial. The trial was just a joke in itself. Because when I showed up at the trial, by then I had a copy. This was within a month of the accident. I had a copy of the denial of insurance letter for the guy who hit me. And I'd given that to the prosecution and given that to the police officer involved. And they didn't care. The prosecution, because it was a sanctuary city, she told the judge I was badgering the witness about him driving without insurance when he ran into me. And I broke my hands. I have 2 torn ligaments have to be surgically repaired. Cost $10,000 in vehicle damage to my truck. The guy files a claim against me 2 days after the accident. That kind of stuff. Right. And